Hello and welcome to Intro to Digital Sculpting with Sculptris. My name is Pierre and I'm a character artist. I've been studying and teaching digital sculpting for over 10 years and have had the opportunity to create some coursework and lessons for learning hubs and magazines. In this course, I will ease you into the world of digital sculpting and assume you have no prior experience with 3D or any other art software. I will walk you step by step in acquiring the free software we will use, as well as recommend optional hardware and quickly get you up and running. So join me and let's have some fun digital sculpting. What is digital sculpting? Well, digital sculpting or 3D sculpting is pretty much digital clay, using software with tools made to mimic those used with traditional clay. Artists manipulate geometry to create characters, creatures, and other objects. Its interests span from hobbyists to professionals working with video games, movies, toys, advertising, 3D print, as well as the medical industry. Advancements have put the more technical aspects in the back seat, making 3D creativity more accessible and affordable than ever. Hardware. You can indeed digital sculpt using just a mouse. While completely optional, using a graphics tablet is highly recommended. Much like actual pen and paper, they allow you to create a range of small to large or shallow to deep strokes depending on your pressure applied. Most digital art applications are made to take advantage of this hardware. These once pricey items have become more affordable, allowing you to purchase one for as little as $22. Well, more like $23 after tax, but still very affordable. I've made a small list of tablets ranging in size and price, all under $60. Do remember though, you have no problem completing this course using your trusty mouse. Interface and navigation. Let's start by opening Sculptris. You should be greeted with a screen very similar to this. All of our tools are located on the left side in small square or squarish tiles. Up top is some additional options. As for navigation, it's hard to tell if you're moving around a perfect sphere, so let's select the draw brush over here. Next, left click and hold on the sphere, then drag and release. This should help us navigate around it now. There are a couple of ways to move around inside Sculptris. There are notes on moving around in the right hand corner of your viewport. This can be toggled on and off by pressing the F1 key on your keyboard. Place your cursor in any empty space, click and drag in order to rotate around your model. You can also rotate around your model by right-clicking and dragging on your model. Press and hold Shift key to snap camera to profile views. Press both Control button and right-click, then drag in order to zoom in and out of your model. Alternatively, you can use the scroll wheel in your mouse to do the same. Lastly, you can pan around your model by pressing both Alt key and either right or left click and drag in any empty space. This can also be done by pressing Alt and right clicking on your model and moving around. Take a moment to practice how to pan, rotate, and zoom in and out of your model till it starts to feel natural. Symmetry. Symmetry is an essential feature in most sculpting apps, and Sculptris is no different. By default, symmetry is activated when you open Sculptris. You can tell that symmetry is turned on by a faint white line going down the center of your model, as well as the symmetry button being highlighted in orange. This can be turned off by pressing the symmetry button. You will get a pop-up message asking you if you'd like to continue or not. Clicking yes will remove symmetry and the faint white line with it, allowing you now to sculpt on both sides of your model independently. You can turn symmetry back on if you like, This will mirror the information from the right side of your model to the left. Clicking the symmetry button on will give you a pop-up message letting you know this. Clicking OK will confirm and make your model symmetrical. Brush settings. Let's say you were tasked with sweeping a large room. Would you prefer a normal sized broom like this one, or a large push broom? I'm sure most will pick the large broom for the job. The idea here is to pick the best size for the job. In Sculptris, there are many ways to change the size and strength of your brush. At the top of our viewport, we have two sliders. One controls the size of your brush, the other controls the strength. Strength controls how strong of a stroke you will make. The most preferred method of editing our brush uses the spacebar. Pressing and holding the spacebar on your keyboard will open a brush menu wherever your cursor is located. Dragging a marker on each slider will make changes to your brush. You can change the brush size and strength without touching the slider, simply by holding the spacebar key to open the menu. Next, click and drag left to right anywhere to adjust the strength, and click and drag up and down anywhere to adjust the size. At the moment, don't worry about the detail slider, just keep it in the center. You can preview the size and strength of your brush on your model by viewing the orange circle representing your brush. You can preview the strength of your brush via the shade of orange the circle has. Grab brush. The grab brush is pretty straightforward. Select the grab brush. Next, click and drag on your model. The grab brush allows you to push and pull areas of your model. The size of your brush reflects the area you can move around. Changing the strength will affect the way your grab brush moves. Ctrl+Z allows you to undo your last stroke or move. You can undo up to 10 times consecutively. Some brushes have two modes. The grab brush has a global mode. Since we already have the grab brush selected, we only have to click grab brush once again to shift to global mode, or simply turn on global mode by clicking here. Global mode allows you to move your entire model. Keep in mind, with symmetry on, global mode only allows you to move up and down the symmetry line. Take some time to play around with the grab brush. Once fairly comfortable, try to make something simple using only the grab brush. I suggest a head or face. It may be difficult, but the goal isn't to make a masterpiece just yet, but to establish an understanding for the basic tools. Draw and smooth brush. The draw brush is your go-to brush for sculpting your model. Select the draw brush. Next, click and drag across your model to create a stroke. By default, the brush is in clay mode. Now hold the Alt key and stroke your model. This is how you carve into your model using the draw brush. As mentioned before, some brushes have alternate modes. Pressing the draw brush icon again will turn off clay mode, or you can simply uncheck the clay mode here. Now create another stroke on your model. You can see the difference between the strokes. The clay stroke has a flat top, while the non-clay stroke has a round top. Be sure to size your brush appropriately to sculpt the area you're working on. The smooth brush, smooths. Select the smooth brush. Next, click and drag across a previous stroke to smooth it out. Smooth is used in various ways. It can be used to erase details or to soften details. Adjusting the strength of your smooth brush will affect the intensity of your smoothing. You can quick toggle on the smooth brush at any time, no matter what brush you have selected. For instance, select the draw brush. Now hold the shift key to toggle on the smooth brush and drag across your model, then release. Without pressing anything, stroke your model again. As you see, holding the shift allows you to hop in or out of smooth brush. There are still a few more brushes to cover, but these two along with the grab brush can get you moving things around and having some fun sculpting. So have a go and try making, let's say, a smiley face. Be sure to experiment with the alternate brush modes and brush settings. Crease and pinch brush. Crease and pinch are essentially your detail brushes. The crease brush allows you to create edges to your sculpted details. Select the crease brush. Next, click and drag across your model. The depth of the crease can be changed from shallow to deep by changing your brush strength. Hold the Alt key and create another stroke using the crease brush. This time the brush creates an raised edge instead of a normal crease. The pinch brush allows you to close gaps and sharpen edges. We need something to pinch in order to demonstrate. Create a stroke on your model using the draw brush. Select the pinch brush. Next, click and drag lengthwise the stroke. Notice the stroke has shrunk. Creases and edges can be tightened by dragging the pinch brush across them. Be sure to select the right size and strength to get the best results. Inflate and flatten brush. The inflate and flatten brushes give you unique ways to edit your model. The inflate brush lets you expand your details. Select the inflate brush. Next, click and drag back and forth. Now try a circular motion. You will see that the brush grows in a bulb-like manner. The flatten brush polishes your details. Select the flatten brush and brush over the details to see its effect. You'll notice that it basically flattens the surface. The effect can vary in intensity by changing the strength of your brush. Take a moment to play with these brushes before moving on to get a good feel of them. Scale and rotate. Scale and rotate allow you to move parts of your model in a specific manner. The rotate tool gives you the ability to rotate parts of your model or the entire model. Select the rotate tool. Next, click and hold. This circle represents the center of your tool. Next, drag your cursor outside the circle. You will notice a line follow you. Once outside the circle, you can now rotate the area defined by the size of your brush. If you want to rotate your entire model, simply go to the options at the top of the viewport and check the global option. Note that rotation is limited with symmetry turned on. The scale brush works in a very similar method, however, allowing you to size up or down an area of your model or your entire model. Select the scale brush. Next, click and drag over some details to see its effect. You will see that you can enlarge or shrink an area of your model defined by the size of your brush. Just like the rotate tool, you have the option to scale your entire model by clicking on global. This set of tools are really handy if you're working with more than one piece of geometry, or simply by means of making edits to your model that may be difficult to do with the move brush. Mask brush. Masking refers to the clever technique where painters use masking tape or fluid to protect areas they don't want to paint on. The mask brush gives us the same ability. For instance, select the mask brush, hold Ctrl key and stroke over an area. If you need to edit your mask, simply drag across your model without holding the Ctrl key. The dark color represents the mask, means that we can't edit the area until it's removed. Try stroking over an area and you will notice that the mask area is unaffected. You can invert your mask by holding the Ctrl key and clicking in an empty area on your viewport. This is very handy for masking off large areas quickly. In order to clear your mask, hold the Ctrl key, click and drag within an empty area of your viewport. Changing the strength of your mask will give you shades of gray that vary in influence. Spend some time playing with the mask brush, drawing a mask, drawing multiple masks, inverting masks, and trying various sculpt brushes around masked areas. Materials. Materials give you alternate ways of viewing your model as different surface types and lighting. It's a good idea to switch up your material from time to time to view your model and detail as well as forms under different lighting, and occasionally to reignite your interest. You can change your materials by clicking on the icon at the top of your viewport. This will present you with some materials to choose from. You can use your mouse scroll wheel to move up and down the list, or grab the marker to the right to do the same. Simply click on the material to apply it, and you're done. Materials can be fun to play with, but keep in mind that very shiny and metallic materials can be difficult to sculpt with. Save and open files. At some point in time, you will want to save your progress and pick up later. To save your work, select the Save button here, and you will open a menu to choose where to save your file. You can recognize Sculptris files by viewing the suffix .sc1 on each file. To open files, select the Open File button here. Next, navigate to the location of the file and select Open. Sculptris will ask you if you want to open the file as a new scene or add object, meaning add to your current scene. If you select Add Object, you will now have to place the model in your scene. Be sure to choose a good viewing angle to place your model in prior. When it's time to place your model, you aren't able to change your camera position till after it's placed. Your model will be added to your scene, masking off everything but the new geometry. Remember that you can invert your mask or clear it at any time. New sphere, new plane. New sphere and new plane are your options for starting a new project or to add more models to your scene. To add another model to your scene, click either New Sphere or New Plane. Next, you will receive a message box. Click Add to Scene. Next, you will need to place the object in your scene. Keep in mind, if symmetry is on, you will have the ability to place a new model either on both sides or in the middle. After clicking to confirm placement, your new model will be added to your scene with everything masked off. Remember that you can invert or clear the mask if you want. To start a new project, simply click either New Sphere or Plane, and this time select New Scene. You may receive a warning message letting you know that any unsaved work will be lost. This is your opportunity to click Cancel and save your work, then repeat the process or select OK. Tips and techniques. A few things to note and execute going forward. 3D shape breakdown. Visually breaking down your project into basic 3D shapes helps you establish a solid foundation for your sculpt. Shape hierarchy. It's best practice to identify and create the large and simple shapes first and grow from there. The contour of your subject is first. It's known as the primary shape. The next level of shapes within are considered the secondary shapes. And last but not least are the tertiary shapes or detail. This is how many artists develop their creation from the ground up. Build in pieces. It is very possible to sculpt your entire project from one solid piece of geometry. However, this can be difficult and time consuming after a while. It's best practice to split your model up into separate pieces of geometry to gain additional control over each section. Pre-planning tools and methods. As you gain experience, it's good practice to imagine what tools or brushes you will use to tackle each portion of your project. You can take this a step further and even label your reference, noting what tools or methods will be used for each section. Reference is not optional. Don't trust your mental library to help you do a good job. Any subject matter is full of subtle nuances your mental library will not recall. Save often. Software crashes happen. There's usually no way to telling when they will happen, and it's best practice to save often. Every 5 to 10 minutes is a good average. In the event that Sculptris crashes and you haven't saved your work, you won't lose too much work. Sculptris has a recovery system that will load your project upon relaunching the program. Mini Dragon Head. We will put all of our knowledge of brushes and tools covered into creating a mini dragon sculpt. To keep our reference on screen, I'm using a software called PureRef. It allows you to place all of your reference images into one area, and most importantly, activate a stay on top mode that makes sure our references stay on top of our software as we sculpt. Now, as the title suggests, we're going to be working on the head of our mini dragon here, starting things out with the grab brush here. I'm going to start pulling out the shape for his head. One thing you'll notice as we sculpt here is that we move around constantly around the model. This helps us make sure that we establish the shapes that we're going for from every angle. Now, you could dive in here and start to sculpt things out with the draw brush, but I believe it's definitely best practice to establish the basic shape using your grab brush before you start to really get into sculpting. And I'm just grabbing and pushing towards the edges to kind of give myself some corners here. I don't necessarily want corners, but I'm putting it in the model for now just to establish that basic shape I have in mind. And now I'm looking at the lizard's head from a profile view, which we'll be working from mostly throughout this course to take advantage of symmetry here. Be sure to play around with the strength of your grab brush so you get just the right strength for pulling out the forms you want. One great way of improving your sculpting skills is to actually draw. Now, even if you're not the best sketch artist, still give it a shot. Understanding how shapes work in 2D will definitely benefit you in the 3D world. Now I'm going to go and use the draw brush to carve out a placeholder for his eye here to help us figure out some of the forms here. It's good to have a spot for the eye so we can kind of have some perspective as to where some of his pieces such as his snout and mouth will go. And I'm just using this to build up the brow and bags underneath his eye here. Just placeholder stuff here. And what you'll see will happen as you get used to playing with several brushes, as we have in the past clips, that you will start to understand what brushes will give you the effect that you want. And after a while, it'll become second nature and you'll just know immediately what brush to use. But if you're new for now, this will take some time before you kind of develop this understanding of what brushes to use, as several brushes can kind of give you similar effects and you'll learn which ones are more suited to what you're trying to do at that point in time. Just continuing to check things out with the grab brush here, making sure to work my way around various angles here, as we stated before. Now, most of the images I have here for the reference are of a lizard called the armadillo girdle lizard, and the red-eyed little guy there is the red-eyed crocodile skink is the name of the lizard, in case you wanted to look those up. Now, full disclaimer, this is actually my second or potentially my third attempt at sculpting a dragon head. Now, similar to how basketball players and other athletes run drills and practice before the big game, I warmed up to the actual subject matter of sculpting a lizard by doing some trial runs, and they weren't that great, I will admit that, but it's one of those things where you just kind of have to warm up to it as your mind starts to get accommodated to the tools you're using, and more importantly, the shapes that you want to actually make. So if you don't nail it your first time and you're feeling discouraged, don't take a break, start again, and you will definitely improve every time you do that. But if you can, try to stick in there and try to figure out why things aren't working. use different brushes, and so on. You will get it. Keep in mind that at this point, our sculpt is more of a loose sketch, and that anything can change, big or small, or drastic or subtle at this point. I want to make his eye socket larger, like a nice large eye to enhance his cuteness factor here. Now I'm going to go and grab the draw brush and do a little sculpting up top here to start, just to play with that brow. Give him a nice heavy brow, typical for dragons here. Look around the angle. I'm going to carve out a little bit for a snout just to get the shape I'm looking for. I'm going to come in here and begin to carve out a little bit of a hole for his nose. Could go ahead and turn off clay mode, but I have a special relationship with clay mode. Really like that brush there. Just gonna go ahead and smooth it out. Like come back in and carve in a little bit deeper here now with clay mode off. A few more tweaks here as we continue to work our way around the model. Now if you can get here faster, that's awesome, but if it takes you longer, that is also very well and completely fine. Everybody works at different paces. The ultimate goal is just to make something awesome and have a great time and learn while doing so. I'm thinking we are just about ready to place in a mouth here, so let me make a few more tweaks before we start to do that here to his snout and whatnot. Just gonna lightly draw that in. Just carving in the mouth here with the crease brush. Make sure to play around with the strength value you want for that. And once again, this is just kind of a placeholder. We're likely to shift things around, restroke and smooth and all sorts of things as we go forward and figure things out. This is pretty much clay. We can still move it and shape it as we will. Okay. All right. So now let's see, what will we tackle next on his head. I'm gonna go ahead and grab this mask brush, and I'm just gonna go ahead and mask the upper portion of his head. I feel like his mouth is a little bit too thin at the bottom, so I'm just gonna grab the brush and kind of pull out. And this is one of the ways people use masks in order to protect areas they don't want to move areas, just the areas they want to move, like so. Just make sure I got what I want before clearing. Alright, just looking at it from a few more angles here. Let's see, next let's go ahead and add a sphere to our project here. Let's undo that, snap to the center. Let's do it from the front here. Alright, this way we can avoid snapping to the center. Next we're going to go ahead and scale those down. Alright, and use the grab brush, which is in global mode now, and just start to move that in place. Now you should know, if you're new to working in 3D, placing objects is a bit tedious. You have to look from various angles to make sure you do have it in the right place. So don't be in too much of a rush to nail things too quickly before moving on. Okay, now we got the eyeball in place here. Let's go ahead and continue to tweak our head here. Some of the areas that we're looking at. Kind of have this idea of him having sort of a spiky jaw in the rear there. Definitely work that out as we go forward. Let's come here and play with these horns here. Widen the gap using this grab brush here. I won't finagle too much with it. Just something to note later on. Alright. Let's check them out from a few angles here. But that just about concludes this clip. In the next clip, we'll continue to work on his head. Mini Dragon Head Part 2. Alright, in this clip we're going to pick up where we left off in the last clip, continuing with the development of the head of our mini dragon here. I'm going to go ahead and grab the mask brush and add, in addition to his eye that's masked off, a masked off region around his eye. After inverting it, I'm going to use the grab brush to make some edits to the eye section here. As you may notice, these kind of tweaks could be relatively hard to do just using the move brush by itself. The masking gives us the capability to work in areas we want and kind of define the boundaries in a different manner. You see, now I'm just pulling out the eyebrow ridge. I'm just seeing how things are looking from this angle, and clear that mask, unmask the eye, and then invert like so. Okay, and just perform a bit of smoothing around areas. Now it's best interest to make sure you have your big shapes locked in and relatively happy with before we move into the detail phase, because it can be hard to rework the big areas after you've added in some details. You find yourself potentially reworking some areas and spending more time than you probably want on your model. So that's my plan here, to continue to make these tweaks till I'm relatively happy before we dive in with the more sculpting on the surface level here. Alright, now with the flattened brush, I'm just going to go ahead and use that as a means of smoothing, or polishing I should say, some areas and kind of get a different look to the surface as opposed to using the actual smoothing brush. I'm using a low strength flattened brush here around the model, just using it to tweak some areas. Gonna add some definition to the surface here. It's really good for making hard areas look hard, like the bone of his horns, as you'll see later on as we come back to detail these areas. Alright, this will be our last major edits using the grab brush here. Just a few tweaks around the head and mouth area here. That's done. Let's go ahead and grab the draw brush, and that's with clay mode turned on, and I want to get back in on that eye area and start to develop that fold over the eye, kind of develop an eyelid here. And every stroke I make in the same area is just building up the height, adding more volume. And the same for underneath the eye, kind of adding to that bag area. And we got some volume set in here. I'm just going to go ahead and grab our crease brush. It's up here. And now we're just going to come in and add some definition to this eyelid and around the bags that we just sculpted in there. And I'm just kind of loosely grabbing this in here, just kind of keeping it looking organic and a little rough, like so. Just restroking some of these creases, and as you can see, very quickly you can get something that looks relatively not realistic, but kind of believable, if you will, as far as this guy feeling alive, especially around the eye area. Let's continue and work around the eye and use the draw brush to build up the brow right here, right above the eyeball there, like so. Dragons typically have a prominent brow. I guess it makes them look menacing. And let's continue to develop around the crown of his head here, has some interest. I have nothing in particular I want to add in there because I want to keep his definition kind of low, as he's supposed to be a mini dragon and in my mind kind of a young dragon as well. So I want to keep the definition just a bit low, nothing more than what we did around the eye area, and just adding a little bit more in with that crease around that brow. Just seeing how I feel about it, not 100%. If you don't like it, you can always smooth it out, as well as any other details you might try out. Now, while this is a course here, and this is a section on creating this little dragon here, I do definitely encourage you to deviate however you will on your own creation, rather how you design your dragon, or if you decide to do something else completely different, a different animal, different subject matter, definitely do that. Have fun. That's the main focus of this course. A few more tweaks with the grab brush around the top of his head near his horns here. Just testing some things out. A few more tweaks on these spikes around his chin or jaw. Keep saying chin. And let's play around these horn area here. Just gonna go ahead and use the crease brush and create a bit of a divide between the bone of his horn and his actual head here. And we can do that real easily using that crease brush. I'm gonna go ahead and select the draw brush, and I want to kind of build up the flesh around his horns. I assume there'd be kind of a build up around the bone area, like so. And back with the grab brush, kind of get things to flow kind of smoothly as far as his profile goes. While it's good to study and work off your reference, it's also good to know when to go off path and deviate from your images and make changes as you see fit. Use some artistic liberty, such as when we enlarged his eyes to make him look cuter than the lizards are in our reference. If you don't like it, you can always undo. You have at least 10 to do consecutively. Use the grab brush to make some more edits here to his snout here. Just a few tweaks. You'll never not be tweaking. It's always something to edit, and this is a good thing. As long as you always find things to edit, you'll always be improving on your model. I'm just masking off this eye area here. I feel like it should be pushed back just a little bit, and you'll see that even large edits like this can be managed even at this state. I just pull the eye back using the global grab brush, and then coming in and smoothing out those hard edges we created. There you go, the eye that was pulled back. Now with the rotate tool in global mode, just going to turn the head downwards just to prepare it for the body, which we'll add in the next clip. I'm going to go back and use the mask brush now just to mask off his chin and his horns here, just the back area of his head. I want to pull this area back a bit more, making his head a bit longer, thus allowing you to see that you can make big edits even now. Now with the grab brush in global mode, just going to click and pull back just a bit and release. And we can continue to make edits now with global mode turned off, and just make edits as we want. Just going to clear that mask and make that edit now, like so. As we make progress, keep in mind to save often. Save every 5 to 10 minutes. As we stated before, crashes are very real. They happen. Don't get bummed out about them. Just note that you can pick up somewhere close to where you left off after the crash when you reopen Sculptris. Just a few more tweaks around the head here. I'm just examining a few things from a few spots here. Just gonna grab the draw brush and just build up a cheekbone area here just to add some definition to his face. A kind of landmarks for the face here. A little attention around his mouth. And already that little cheekbone area is adding a bit more believability to his face is what I want to call it. And you can do this all around his face real subtly. Build it up and smooth it out a bit with the smooth brush and get a nice balance somewhere in there. I'm going to grab the crease brush, get the right size and strength, kind of just restroke the mouth area here all the way around and to the front. Sometimes as you work, it's good for artists to kind of really imagine their creation actually living and being in the real world, if not a world in general. For instance, you can imagine this dragon moving around in a lair, or maybe on a table playing with some coins from its master or whatnot, or maybe it's in the wild and it's hanging around its mother, I don't know, eating berries or whatever dragons in your head eat. But that does conclude this clip. In the next clip, we'll begin the body of our dragon. Mini Dragon Body Part 3. Okay. In this clip, we're going to go ahead and add a body for our mini dragon here. And we're going to do that in just a moment. But we're going to snap to the front view, click New Sphere, and add Object. We're just going to place that right in the center like so. Get your scale tool, just make it smaller, and just move it into place with the grab brush there. Next, I'm going to turn off global with the grab brush, and then I'll start to move things around and curve his body from his neck all the way down to his tail and kind of curve it in towards his body. So just take your time here as you just imagine the body. Now the bodies of the dragons are quite similar to a tube in its basic shape, but since our dragon's body is kind of curling in towards himself, you can imagine kind of a pudgy like bean with a tail on the end. And I'm just slowly pulling out the tip here of this tail to get it to curve like so. And I wanted to kind of like touch his nose. Felt that was kind of cute and referenced our reference, I should say. And I'm just gonna do a whole lot of tweaking here to this body as we go forward with the course here. It's very important to get the proportions really nailed on when you're doing stylized work. This makes all the difference. So I'm just continuing to use that grab brush here, just working that tail. And things are not quite well rounded here. You can go ahead and grab the flatten brush here. I'm just gonna kind of sculpt things down, get rid of these edges here. Now as you work around your model, you notice a little bit low on resolution, maybe by a bit of a pixelated or crunchy looking texture. Use a medium to a small flatten brush over the area, and that'll add a bit more resolution to that section for you to work with. And with this flatten brush, I'm just touching in areas here, just adding a bit more volume to the tail where we need it. and continue to tweak with the grab brush. Looking just about right. Don't need it perfect yet, just want it good enough to move on to other areas here. Just gonna build up a bit of a tummy for him right here. More placeholder sculpting here. Definitely add more to that as we go forward. A little indication for some shoulders here. Smooth it out a bit. See how that looks. Check your different angles here. And I'm just gonna carve down for a neck area. Want it to be a transition between his head to his neck. Alright. And continue to add a little more volume here and there. Alright, I like the way that's looking. Now if you want it, it's quite common for artists to dive a bit deeper in understanding their subject matter. In order to place these forms and his anatomy in more accurate positions, what you could do is search online for some skeleton anatomy pictures of a lizard, if you will, to help you kind of get a better understanding on where their bones and placements work. Now let's go ahead and add a sphere to both sides of our mini dragon here. And next we're going to go ahead and scale those down like so. Change our camera angle, get the grab brush, and place them in position right at his shoulders, and just kind of tuck them into the model like so. Okay, right into position. Scale them down a little bit more, and now we're going to go ahead and get things started with making some arms here. Now with global mode turned off, we're just gonna stretch this sphere down a bit to make the first segment of his arm, and then up, kind of making a almost V letter shape. And now that we have that roughed in, we're gonna spend some time here using the grab brush and moving our camera angle, just pushing and pulling that arm to sit right on top of his body. Some moments like this, you can really find yourself getting into the zone and focusing on your character or sculpt, and it's really beneficial to do things such as maybe close your browser or minimize it, and maybe put on some music you like to listen to, or maybe an album you haven't heard in a while. That'll really get you in the zone. Or maybe you can leave your browser open and maybe listen to a show while you work. That's also pretty fun. It helps me kind of concentrate from time to time. I'm just going to continue to work on these arms here. Just continue to edit the form a bit with this draw brush. Just going to smooth that out some here and see how that looks from this angle. It's not bad. From underneath, let's go ahead and get our grab brush and pull the arm out a bit. Don't want it to penetrate too much, just a little will do. Alright, it's looking good. Let's go ahead and add a sphere, add object, and commit. And let's scale these down just a bit. And if you guessed it, these are going to be his legs, or his hind legs. We're just gonna move them into place of his hips from both angles like so. Alright, and make sure we penetrate it just enough for us to work with. Let's go ahead and turn off global mode for our grab brush and begin to stretch it out much like we did the arms. This time we're going for more of a upside down B, or a if you will, shape here. And much like before, we're just gonna really focus on getting that form and getting it to lay on the body as it would naturally. and we can spend some time here. No rush. Every piece is equally as important. I want to give it the time it needs. Stretching out shapes is definitely a good point to have some good control over the sizing of your brush, especially when you're using the grab brush, because it can definitely affect how you pull out the shape. If it's too small, you won't get the results you want, and if it's too big, you might end up grabbing other sections of your model. So definitely get a handle on it if you're having some issues with it. Now with the flattened brush, I'm just going around and reshaping him a bit, and I'm just making things a little flat, but ultimately I'm just gonna come back and smooth things out. But it's just changing the direction of that surface. It's what is good to use it for. Now back to the grab brush, get to pulling and pushing around. Just about there with these legs here. Can never spend too much time on it, as long as you're happy with it. It's the ultimate goal here. If you want it, you could even sculpt a more elongated Chinese dragon from this profile view. This is a great angle for sculpting dragons inside of Sculptris. As we just continue to tweak away on these legs. One thing you may notice as you continue on sculpting is that these little tweaks from all around your model from different camera angles is a big part of the process, and they make all the difference of making that initial shape look and feel way more believable and likable to the eye. Getting a new set of eyes on your artwork can benefit your project. Getting a family, friend, or spouse or significant other to look over it and give you some opinions or ideas could definitely boost your work. But that does conclude this clip. In the next clip, we'll continue working on the body of our mini dragon. Mini dragon body part 4. In this clip, we're going to continue and add more to the body of our mini dragon here. But before we do so, I want to enlarge his head a bit. So I'm unmasking it as well as his eye, because we got to scale those together. And I just did that by shift clicking on the eye to add that to the unmasked area. Now with scale tool and global turned on, we just click and sized up. I'm going to grab the rotate, also in global mode, and just rotate here from his jaw, just to pull his chin out of his belly. Okay, notice that the lizards kind of have sort of large heads, and I wanted to add that to the dragon as well. So now let's go ahead and perform some more tweaks to his body and a little bit more definition as well. Let's start by adding some fingers using the crease brush. I'm just gonna make a small cut down the middle of his hand just to make some would-be fingers, and I'm just gonna go ahead and use the grab brush to kind of play with the curve of that crease we just made, just a little bit like so. Just add a slight curve to it like that. And he's just gonna have the 2 fingers. I've actually played around with different kinds of fingers. I had something more detailed. I tried something with just spheres. Really a trial and error process that I didn't want you guys to kind of sit and watch me kind of suffer through, but it's all part of the process. Everything you do isn't going to be great, but know that if you keep at it, you'll find something that works, or at least something that's better than everything else. So I kind of like these. They were better than the other options I had tried, so I'm going forward with these. And now I'm just carving in some nails with the crease brush as well. Alright, I'm going to do the same for his feet, but it's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to add a little bit more dimension to his toes. Just want to add a little bit more to this crevice here for that fold. Wanted to make it a little bit sharper using a crease brush. I made it a little too sharp, so let's go ahead and smooth that out some. And work our way down to the bottom of his leg here. Let's go ahead and sculpt in a little bit of a indication for a kneecap here. Not too much definition, just a slight bump there. And now let's go ahead and turn off clay mode, and let's begin to sculpt out some toes for our mini dragon here. So go ahead and move my brush around kind of in like circle or up and down motion will work. I get these tiny little nubs that are perfect for our little dragon here. Next, with the grab brush, I'm just going to move some things around. I'm going to flatten the bottom of that foot so it looks like a foot. And I'm kind of thinking about the style of the dinosaurs from the Land Before Time is what I'm kind of thinking about in my mind, how their feet will look. And just making slight changes to the position and pointing of the toes, and just slight tweaks as usual. And we're going to work this a bit from the front angle here. Now I don't expect this angle to be seen when we export a image from Sculptris for sharing, and viewing will be from the side angle, the more prominent angle, but it's always good to work all the way around your model in the event that you do choose to use other angles. Now with the crease brush, I'm just laying in some, creases right underneath his toes, just to add a little bit of definition. Nothing too strong here. I'm gonna do it for the top as well, for these. Alright, I like the way that looks. Just bring that around and connect that like so. And let's see, I think I'm gonna sculpt in a bit of a nail here, see how this looks. Didn't exactly prototype this, might not keep it, but we'll see. Can always undo or smooth it out if I don't like it. Let's cancel that. Let's continue with these little nails here, all the way around the toe, like so. Alright, now that that's done, let's go ahead and get the grab brush and get our right size and tweak a little bit more before we conclude things on the toes at this point in time. Just kind of pulling them out just to get a little bit of a tip at the edge there, the little pull, and you have yourself a small pointed tip like so. Alright, that's good. Let's go ahead and grab the crease brush, the right size, and I'm just gonna recrease that little nail there. And I'm just gonna hold Alt and run down the center and just kind of give it a point. Alright, I like how that's looking. It's always good to zoom out, don't stay zoomed in too long. You might find yourself over detailing. That is a thing. So don't stay zoomed in until you're officially in detailing mode. Now back to the body with our grab brush. Let's start making some notable tweaks here. I want to pull the tail out of his nose. Make sure you size up your brush nice and large if you have the same issue to fix there, to pull that out. Now with this here crease brush, I'm gonna make some landmarks for further sculpting, such as his neck here. I wanted to kind of accentuate his shoulders as well as his neck with that crease there. A little indication around his legs, his tummy, as well as the base of his tail. I want to add some little creases here just to come back later and add folds around the back of his shoulders here. Don't want it too smooth. I want to show a little bit of anatomy in here. That's looking good. See, what do we want to do next to our dragon? Let's go with the move brush. Let's continue to edit his overall shape of his body. Like I said, we want to give the indication that he is actually, you know, flesh and bone. He has some bones underneath there, some muscles. Now, one very consistent feature in many designs of dragons are the spine spikes that run down the center of the back of dragons, and that's a fun little detail I like to add to our dragon. So I'm just gonna sculpt out a spot in the back of his head to start the spikes, and they'll run all the way down to his tail. All right, so let's go ahead and make a few more edits and tweaks before we get that started here. Just want to play with this area here, just pulling that back, just realizing the shape I want for that. Looks good. See from this angle. All right, he is just about ready. So let's go ahead and click on the body, grab our draw brush and turn off clay mode. And we're going to actually start with the head, so we're going to shift click that as well. And now we're going to go ahead and just move our brush around in a semicircular pattern to build up a little mound of a spike. And we're going to do this all the way down his back just to start our spikes. Now be mindful of the placement of your spikes. You can always undo and replace a spike, but be sure to just take your time and figure out the spacing you want. If your spacing is too close or too far, or maybe one was too close to another one, it's fairly easy to do an undo and try it again. Now we have those sculpted in, let's get the grab brush, and we're just gonna size our brush appropriately and just start pulling these little spikes out. And we can pull and curve them in the direction we want as well. So I'm kind of curving towards the right of the screen as I'm pulling these out, so they look even cooler with the direction to them. Kind of adds a bit more interest to the spikes. But if you want, you can have yours pulling straight out as well, or even upwards. That could look cool too. Alright, and as you see, as I'm getting further down the tail, I'm pulling out the spikes even less, just to kind of get that slight fade off vibe to mesh with the taper of the tail. As you guess, our continued tweak of these spikes aren't done yet. I'm going to use the grab brush to continue to edit this one particular spike in the back of his head. It is kind of being overlapped by his chin spikes in the back of his head here, so I just want to trial and error the best angle here, maybe make some more room. We'll continue to play with that as we go further in the sculpting process here. But one thing I definitely want to do is grab the crease brush and get our size down. Alright, and our strength just right, and just kind of circle around the base of these spikes, giving them more of a crisp kind of base instead of a kind of a smooth transition. I imagine that they'd kind of kind of come out of a, a slight mound or crevice in his back, or however these things grow out of creatures. But I feel that definitely adds to the detail of the spikes. Okay, let's continue to edit with some more move brush. You can definitely use some smooth too to help you kind of, well, smooth out the spikes as well. Well, that does conclude this clip. In the next clip, we'll begin working on the wings of our mini dragon. Mini dragon wings part 5. In this clip, we're going to go ahead and create the wings for our mini dragon here. We're going to go ahead and click new sphere and add object and commit spheres to both sides of our dragon here. Next, we're going to click this XYZ next to the global button. This will allow us to scale in an ununiform manner, as you'll see. Just click and drag in any direction, and you're able to even flatten these spheres to little disc-like objects right here. You can go ahead and turn the XYZ back on and scale down with the global. Now, let's go ahead and select the grab brush, and we're going to go ahead and place this generally where the wings will go, and go ahead and scale down just a bit more. And we'll be playing with the size more than once. And now, with global turned off, we're just going to stretch out the part that would be connected to his body for the wing. And now we're just going to form the actual wing itself here. I'm just imagining a simple wing with a slight dip in it, and just pulling it out. I don't want too many shifts in the direction of the shape here. I'm going to keep it simple, much like our dragon. Next, I'm just going to go ahead and click this button to add some geometry here. Alright, so now I'm just going to go ahead and smooth out a little bit here. Alright, now that we've got that, let's go ahead and do it to the other side. And now let's go ahead and select this flatten brush. Let's flatten both sides a bit using that. We're kind of a medium strength setup. Let's do it to the other side as well. Now we won't actually see the other side. It's going to be facing each other away from our profile angle here, but I'll still do a little work on it. Now let's go ahead and select our draw brush, and I want to go ahead and begin to kind of carve out the center of this wing a bit, just trying to create a bit of a recess. Just gonna do that. It's got a little sloppy in there. Keep in mind not to make your brush too big, or it'll pull the other side of your model and it'll kind of collapse on itself, as you just saw there. So kind of use a medium to small brush to carve this out. And I'm just carving it out, not too worried, smoothing things out. Alright, and this will give us that form shift that we want to help this look more like a wing. Alright, now we got everything smoothed out here. Let's go ahead and grab our pinch brush and go ahead and squeeze the tips of this just to make them a bit pointier, like so. It's a good use for the pinch brush. And now back to the grab brush. Just gonna pull this portion up in the middle just to get that wing shape I want. Alright, now for the crease brush, I'm gonna create a slight crease right around the edges of our wing here, just for a little extra detail, like so. I'm gonna hold Alt and make one down the center of our wing, like so. Hit it with a little bit of the smooth as well, and I'm just gonna go ahead and re-stroke that crease that we put in earlier. Okay, Now with the move brush, continue to tweak this shape. As usual, it's never a one and done situation. We perform many tweaks to definitely manage and establish the shape we want. Now just putting this in position on his body from the back view here. And I'm using rotate tool to rotate him out a bit. And from this angle, I'm going to rotate him again. It's all about finding that right camera angle from time to time. Just place it, kind of penetrating his body a bit. And later on down the line, we'll go through and seam up some of these different pieces. Alright. More with the rotate tool here. Like so. Just trying to find a good angle for everything. And I think, let's see, we'll come in and smooth this portion out a bit. See how we're looking. Looks good to me. But that just about concludes this clip. And next clip, we'll start detailing. Mini Dragon Details Part 6. In this clip, we're going to go ahead and start adding some details on our mini dragon here. Starting with his tail here. Just going to use the grab brush and start to tweak the tail a bit and get a bit of a more of a curve going on here. I'm just widening the gap on the inside here, and now I'm just going to pull the tip out, resizing my brush from big to small and just pulling it inwards and turning it as well. Let's go ahead and grab the inflate brush and add a bit more volume inside here, like so, just with a couple of taps of the inflate brush. Now back to the move brush for a few more tweaks here and there. Still work my way around this tail here. We're getting closer to finishing our dragon here. You can use a bit more of attention to certain areas, and that's the goal here in this section. Let's go ahead and grab the crease brush. I want to add a little line detail separating his kind of belly side from his back side here, running from the tip of his tail all the way up his side, all the way up to the base of his neck, like so. Kind of adds to the toon look and the stylization of our mini dragon here. And now I'm going to go ahead and just restroke that with a harder strength on that crease brush just to make it a bit more prominent. I'm not worried about missing the line exactly. I feel it adds to the kind of organic vibe of our dragon, so I'm going to keep that. Okay, I like the look of that. Let's go ahead and move on. Add a few more creases in here, and these are to be wrinkles because his tail's folding in on itself and the skin he has, so it'll kind of bunch up in areas. So let's simulate that and add a little bit more realism to our sculpt with these creases here. You can even go in between here with some draw brush and kind of build up those folds if you like. I'm just going to use a pinch brush just to kind of close the gap here. It's a little bit wider than I wanted originally. Let's go to the draw brush here and get the right size and work on that belly a bit more. Kind of want him to have a bit of a belly here, just a little bit. Not that he's necessarily pudgy, but the position kind of bunches up his midsection a bit. Just add a little bit more muscle definition here around his leg. Just a little hint of it. Trying to be very careful with not over detailing this guy. Just playing around with the neck area here. Let's go to the body. Select the grab brush, and I'm just gonna pull it up into his head. Just kind of play with that a little bit. Just examining things from the angle here. And now with that same grab brush, I'm just tweaking these back spikes here. Just play with the overall shape and direction and position. Just have some fun with that. I think I'll raise it up a bit. Just give a bit more space between the wings and that spike. Just a nice balance that way. Just continue to tweak with that move brush till you're satisfied with how things are looking. I like how it's going thus far. Let's continue to edit some things here. More edits here with the move brush. Just continue to tweak his body overall. Just gonna zoom into his tail and do a bit of smoothing. Just gonna go ahead and recrease that little detail like so. Alright, see next on our to-do list for our dragon here. Just gonna go ahead and crease up the spikes on the back of his head here using, of course, the crease brush. Alright, now let's go ahead and grab the draw brush. Just go ahead and zoom in here. I'm just gonna size up my strength, and I'm just gonna run this across the separated pieces here, and it'll kind of bridge them together, kind of getting rid of the seam, making them look like one solid piece. I'm just gonna do this around the base of his neck here, kind of bridging his head and neck, and I'm gonna do it on his arms here, right at the top, right at his shoulders, just to make it look like one piece, and down here on the underside of his leg, just kind of filling that little gap there. Okay, and if you want, you could use the flatten brush to help you kind of smooth things out as well. Okay, just about got that. Let's see, let's look around our model. What else could we use here? Let's go and get the grab brush and just make a few edits to the head here. Okay, next let's go ahead with the crease brush and add a little bit more detail to the base of these horns again. Kind of went back and forth a few times with this, but I think that'll stick this time. And now a little bit more inside the head here with the draw brush. Just trying to add some form. I have nothing in particular I wanted to add there. I just wanted to add a little definition because it was looking a little plain in the back of his head here. So, and sometimes I'll do that. I'll just prototype something with the crease brush or maybe a draw brush, knowing that I can just undo it in the event I don't like it. Let's add a bit more detail to his eye area here. Just wanted to clean up this eye bag underneath his eye here. Just wanted to make that one solid stroke, one solid bag there. Now I'm back with the crease brush. Let's go ahead and recrease like so. Alright, and I'm just gonna recrease a couple of areas around here, up around the top of his head. Just smooths off. Just zoom in here. Add a little bit of a creasing around the back side of the eyelid here. Just restroke that like so. Alright, all the way around, and holding Alt and stroking the edge there will kind of give you the edge of an eyelid. It's a nice little tip I picked up. I can do the same for the top here, all the way around. I'm gonna hit it with a bit of a smooth. It is a bit extra sharp. You can choose a smooth or not, up to your preference. Zoom out. Okay, let's go ahead and smooth it out some more here as well. It's a little too sharp. I'm going to perform the same thing around his nose here. It's a little too smooth, so I'm just going to hold Alt with that crease brush all the way around. And then I'm going to go ahead and smooth it down some, like so. Alright, I'm going to run the crease inside of his nose just to add a little definition inside of his nose, so it doesn't look too boring, like there's nothing in there. Have the edge of his mouth here. Okay, just clear my mask. See how things are looking here. Now we're going to go ahead and perform a few more grab brush tweaks here and there throughout the model. Now would be an excellent time to save your work if you haven't already. Just a reminder, something you definitely need to get in the habit of, and one way or another you will get in the habit. Rather you will start saving or software will start crashing on you. Either way, you'll start saving. Alright, just looking at a few things. Any more tweaks? Anything I want to improve on? Just gonna play with the eyebrow ridge here. Just add a little bit of a curve there. I'm gonna raise his eyebrow ridge here. Just gonna mask off everything. Then unmask his head. I'm gonna grab the mask brush and just mask out the area around his eye. Okay, that should be enough. Just want to make sure I don't move any of this when I use my grab brush. Turn off global, size it up a bit, and just pull out the eyebrow ridge just a bit, just to add a bit more height to that, like so. Clear my mask, like the look of it. Zoom out. Always make sure to zoom out, check things out. Okay, let's go ahead and just about wrap things up here. That concludes this clip. In the next clip, we'll continue with the details. Mini Dragon Details Part 7. In this final clip of our Mini Dragon series here, we're going to add the final details. I'm going to start by adding another spike on the back of his neck here using the draw brush, and next just pulling it out with the grab brush, as we've done many times at this point. Goal here is just to kind of make those final edits and tweaks to kind of wrap this guy up. I'm pretty happy with the results here. Just pulling out these spikes here and there, and getting the angle I want for them, changing my strength, and kind of giving it a push and pull all around here. Just check things out. Just mask everything off and unmask the eye. Next, I'm going to add a little form to the eye using the draw brush on clay mode. Just a light stroke here. They're going to hit it with a little smooth. Just wanted to add an extra value just to kind of show the iris maybe in his eye. Just a little subtle effect there. Let's see, next go ahead and grab the flatten brush, and I'm going to use this around all the hard bony pieces on our dragon here, such as his spikes here. Just gonna give it a few strokes here and there. Nothing in particular here, I just want it to look a little bit harder. It's good to give a shift in surface value, especially if things are supposed to feel different. So like we did here with the rolls on his tummy, just to show his skin building up. A slight detail lets you further believe the fact that it is actually skin there. And later on we'll do a little scale texture as well. Just gonna continue to run this flatten brush across these pieces here, like so. Alright, just about done with this. Just hit the horns up top. Not too many lines. If you do it too much, you'll get a decent amount of detail there, which you could blur out if you want it, but it works if you do fewer strokes with our style dragon here. Next, with the crease brush, just gonna run around the base of those spikes yet again. Helps with the transition between skin to spike. I don't need to do all of them. Okay, let's see. Next on our list to edit. From this front view here, I'm gonna add some spheres to both sides. Click the commit. Next, I'm going to go ahead and scale them down about 3 times here. Just going to go ahead and scale it down a little bit more and add another sphere. Commit. And we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to go ahead and scale it down a few times, roughly the same size as the other sphere here. I'm just going to move it right next to it, like so. Kind of space them apart. Okay. These guys are going to be teeth for our little dragon. Not many teeth, just 2. So I'm just going to pull the top just a bit, just to form the look of the tooth here. Sorry, looking like a little egg. Just going to flatten it a bit using that grab brush on both sides, here and there. Let's do the same for this one. Just grab, pull the top, a little squash from the sides. Trying to make a little stylized tooth, a little dragon tooth. Okay. Next, let's go ahead and continue to squash this, pushing it on both sides here. Could use the flatten brush to do the same thing. I'm just going to rotate this one upside down, because we'll have one facing up and we'll have a tooth facing down. Okay. I'm just rotating this one out a little bit because I don't want it to be. I'm going to need to play with the overlapping a bit as we place these teeth here. Just turn global mode on my move brush. I'm just going to begin to put these guys in place from this camera angle and just kind of get a small penetration going here with the face, like so. Alright, just move them generally into place so it can continue tweaking, such as another scale down. I want them much smaller, about this size should do. Yes. Okay, and just continue to play with the positioning here to get it just right. Just rotate this one out a bit and push it into the model. Push this one in as well. Alright, I like the look of that. Let's go ahead and let's see, rotate this tooth like so. Alright, yeah, I think that looks good. So I grab the move brush, push it in just a bit more, and this is where we get really finicky with the tooth. I want the top to come out a bit. Overlapping we have is fine, but that tip of the tooth kind of needs to come out. Kind of makes or break the whole overlapping process here. And you got to make sure you get just the right size of a brush to pull out that tip. Now with the flatten brush, I'm just going to run it over these teeth real quick like, and makes it look like there's some edges in there, like his teeth are actually sharp. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I was going to play with a scale texture. I'm going to go ahead and grab the draw brush, and I'm just going to make some strategic placement of some scales here. I don't want to cover every inch of his skin with scales, as you know he would be, because he's a dragon. That would take an incredibly long time and very difficult, and ultimately I don't think I'd like it. I like to just place some here and there and just give you the idea that he has scales over it, and sometimes that's all it needed. So I'm just kind of placing them, and if I come to a conclusion I don't like a placement of one, I can come back and smooth it out and even use the flatten brush over it, and we can start as if it wasn't there. So I'm changing the size of my brush as I'm placing them. My general idea is just to have a scale not too far from another scale, just to kind of even out the spacing and vary the size. Now with this crease brush, I'm just taking a light run underside of these scales just to give them a little definition. I don't want them to be too subtle. I want you to notice them, but we're gonna knock this down just a bit because this is a little strong right now. Just finish this like so. And if you want, you could take more time and even make more refined looking scales, but I like these loose little dots. They might not even be interpreted as scales. Maybe they're interpreted as like lumps or just a texture over his skin, and that works too. I just wanted to break up that smoothness all over his body was my goal here. Okay, and I'm just running the flatten brush over these, just flatten them, making them a little bit more flush with the body. Okay, if you want, you can hit that with a little smooth. If it's still a bit strong, you could do that. Okay, smooth this out down here. This little flatten brush, and we're just about done. You can go and apply this to other sides, but this is our main angle for this acid here. You can do it on the top of his head and whatnot, but stick to that for now. Okay, let's go ahead and draw in a scale here and a little crease and a little smooth and some flatten brush. Okay, that works for us. Next on our to-do list for our mini dragon, I want to spend a little time on the wings here. I'm just going to re-crease this edge here and bring it all the way down, and for the other side as well, the crease brush. Okay, lower my strength on the crease and drag down this side of this, I guess, spine. Not sure what that is actually, just a dividing piece. Now that's done, let's go ahead and give him a quick look over and just assess what other things we might want to add to our dragon before wrapping him up here. We're going to add a little something special, a little special effect. I'm going to add a sphere, both sides here, and came with the idea that I want to add a little digital smoke, or just smoke, coming out of his nostrils, and we're going to sculpt it. So I'm going to take this sphere, kind of put it close into position like so, and move it right above his nostril like so, and I'm gonna go ahead, turn global off my grab brush, and then just start to stretch it out and pull. And my idea is I want the smoke to kind of curl at the top here, so I'm just section by section pulling it out, pulling it out, pulling it out, just trying to get this shape in mind here. I don't need to nail anything in particular. I just need some interest between his nostril and the top of this smoke trail here. A little smooth brush helps you kind of get a nice taper. And I'm just playing around with this till I get something that looks good. I just need it to flow. If I can get it to flow kind of smooth like, and I have a nice transition from like thick to thin, it'll work. This will actually be a good time to get some smoke reference, just to study how the shape of smoke trails can be, how they could look, just for inspiration. But I'm just gonna go ahead and wing it here. I want something stylized just to match our style, so it doesn't have to look too realistic. The fact that it's a trail coming out of his nose will kind of suggest that it's smoke, so I'll have to work too hard to convey it. Just gonna mash that tip right into his nose, just so we can make sure people can see it's coming out of his nose there. Okay, like that. Alright, liking the look of that. Just soften the tip with the smooth brush. Alright, kind of like a reverse question mark almost. A little inflate brush just to thicken it up a little bit. It's got almost too thin, but we are just about done. This is what our mini dragon looks like. Before we conclude this clip, I want to show you how to get an image out of Sculptris. First, what we want to do is go ahead and position our model the way we want. Click the options button here. Next, click this save image button in the corner. Select the area you want to save it and give it a name. I'm just going to type mini dragon into the dialog box here. Alright. Next, we have the option between a PNG file or a JPEG. Once it's done, select save. It will be processed and saved in the location you selected. Just click OK to exit, and that's it. In the next clip, we will conclude the course. Course end. Well, this concludes the course. Hope you enjoyed learning the basic tools and methods used for digital sculpting. But don't stop here. Continue your growth by studying the working methods of other digital sculptors via YouTube. And as always, remember to have fun. Add me on social media and subscribe on YouTube to stay in the loop of content and future courses. Till next time, happy sculpting.